Hello and welcome back to another video. We have some acrylic pouring in today's video, and we are actually pouring 3 sets of coasters. So basically I had an order for some teal, grey and white circular coasters, and here I am mixing up the teal colour. So I've been using my Pebeo Studio acrylics, or my Sennelier abstract acrylics, and in this pot here that you see me mixing in, I am using some turquoise opaque acrylic and adding a touch of dark green just to make that teal colour. And I mix up the colour first before adding in any of my mixings and pouring mediums, just to make sure that the colour is where I want it. And for my pours I use Floetrol pouring medium. It is cheaper than your, say, your Liquitex or your branded pouring mediums, and it works just as well. Here in the UK it's not the cheapest. I think in America and Australia you can get it for really cheap, but out here I do get it on Amazon, and it's usually about £30 for a really big bottle. I think it's like a 1 litre bottle or 2 litre bottles, I can't quite remember right now and it's not in front of me. But yes, I find that works the best. It produces cells without even needing the silicone oil in most cases, so it is very handy. So I usually mix that in with my colour paint that I am happy with until it's fully mixed in. Here I overfilled this pot, so I've had to split it into 2. I have a real bad habit of mixing far too much paint, and that's definitely what I did here today. So once I've mixed that up and I'm happy with the colour, I then add water and my silicone oil, and I hold up my spatula and see whether the paint runs off it smoothly, but then creates a peak on top of the paint, and then it will bounce off the spatula when it's dripping into the cup, and that's exactly the perfect proportions. For my white, I actually use wall paint. It's a perfect alternative, and I go through white like no one's business, and so it is really good and perfect for doing big batches. So I highly recommend using that. And then the grey that I've used for these coasters is actually, so when I've done a big pour, usually of mixed colours, I'm doing like mixed pours with probably about 10 colours in them, I have a lot of leftover wasted paint on my mat, and if I'm not dipping a canvas in it to use some of it, I actually pour it all off into one of my reusable kind of like sauce bottles that you can get, that you see in takeaways. I pour it all into there, mix it up, and it usually creates a really nice grey. Now this grey was a little bit metallic, but it works perfectly for this, and I'm not wasting paint, I'm reusing some paint from previously. And at the end of this video I do end up scooping off the excess paint there again, and it created a nice bluey grey, which is lovely. So I definitely mixed far too much paint, and I ended up doing 3 coasters like I mentioned. So I only had the order for the 1, but I thought this is a really popular colour combination, so I thought I would mess around with the quantities that I'm adding into these little cups here before I pour them on. I am adding far too much paint to these coasters, but sometimes you get better results if you let it overspill, and you can manipulate it a lot more, so you can choose which parts you want to keep and which parts you want to pour off, which is very nice. But yeah, I've really enjoyed using these sublimation coasters. So these are used with the likes of your Cricut machines and stuff, and you can sublimate patterns on them and things like that. But it's a very absorbent ceramic, and do you know what? These dry instantly. After half a day they are dry completely through, and I'm ready to varnish, which is a perfect coaster. It's much quicker than pouring on tiles like I used to, so I'm really pleased that I've discovered these, and they're just better quality. But yeah, like, I really was surprised by the differences depending on obviously the quantities of each colour I was adding, but also the order in which I was adding those colours next to one another. These squares came out particularly white, and I think that's because I added the grey a little bit sparingly, but I also added it next to the white, and I think it diluted it quite heavily, which is good. So yeah, they're all very different, and I just think acrylic pouring is so fun when you see how different they all are. But yeah, I thought I would pop on and tell you a little bit about my mixing process, and a little bit more about the coasters, so I'll let you watch the rest of it and hear my thoughts at the end. so we have the finished dry pieces, not completely finished, we still have to varnish and put the backings on, but I thought I would have a little discussion with you as to the differences that we have here. So I obviously had the same amount of paint in each of these. I filled my little cups up to the brim for all of them, but just altering the amount of each colour, obviously I know that's quite an obvious thing, but also the order that I put them in can have drastic effects. So they all look like you could put them together, which is great, but on these ones on this side here we have a bit heavier on the grey, on this side here we have a bit more of an equal amount, and on the square ones here I would say we are a lot heavier on the white, and that can just be order. So I usually start off with white on all of them, which I did, but just maybe mixing more white in between the layers, in between each layer on this one, and then potentially just alternating the white in between and having a little bit more poured in there of the grey just has a drastic effect. And like you saw, I filled each of the cups right up to the brim, and you just get different effects, and that's what I love about acrylic pours. I think a lot of people say there's no art to it, there's nothing, you know, difficult about it, and you know, once you get into the habit of knowing how the viscosity of your paint, the amount of silicone to add in there, the way you pour, yes, it can be quite an easy exercise to do, but getting to that point takes a lot of learning, and I think that's where people forget that it's actually a bit more difficult than it seems. But I just love the way it all is so different, the cells coming out on this one, and that was just 2 little dabs of silicone oil, one in the teal colour and one in the grey. There was nothing in the white, and that's created all of those cells just from that Floetrol mix there, and I just think they look great. So the next thing to do on these is to put that heat proof varnish on them, which I have mentioned before is a it's like a motorbike engine varnish that I found on Amazon. It's like a no-name type brand, but it's perfect. It can yellow a little bit, so you've just got to be a little bit lenient on it, but make sure that there's enough on there to protect the coasters from heat. And then we add on the cork backing. So these are some I did previously. On here it looks like the same colour, but this is actually very much more green. Maybe there you can see a little bit, but this is very green compared to this. But for some reason, no matter how much I take the photo, this always looks teal when it's not. But yes, this is what it will look like, all varnished up, and then a nice little cork backing on the back there. So that's what these will look like. I'm going to skip that process for this video, I think, since I've shown quite a lot of pouring. Since I didn't just do one set of coasters, and I will probably leave it there for that, but I'm really pleased with these. I think they're very nice. They should be up on the website very soon, so if you want to go and check them out on there, they will be up on there for sale. It is free UK postage and packaging, but there will be an additional postage and packaging cost outside of the UK. And I will also be starting up with my Kirkstall Abbey stalls here in Leeds, UK, so if you are nearby and you want to pick these up, they will be available in the first stall in March and the last weekend of March as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and a little bit of a different format, a little bit more voiceover I've been trying out lately, so I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope to see you in Monday's video.